I never thought I'd be telling this story, but here we are. Imagine inheriting a peaceful open-air ranch from your grandfatherland that's been in your family for generations. No mortgage, no HOA, just memories, cattle fences, and wide skies. Now picture waking up one morning to find out your land's been sold off for $25,000 by an HOA you've never signed up for. That's exactly what happened to me. And no one warned me this kind of thing could even happen. When I got the call, I thought it was a scam. "Your ranch has a lien on it," the voice said. "It's been auctioned off." My stomach dropped. I had just visited the place a month earlier. Everything was fine. No bills, no notices, nothing. So how could they sell it without my knowledge? And more importantly, who gave them the right? Turns out some HOAs, a homeowners association, I never agreed to join, slapped bogus fines on the property. We're talking things like fence repair violations and weed overgrowth, even though I wasn't living there. My granddad had always kept the place tidy, and I'd been doing my best to maintain it since he passed. But somehow, this group managed to claim I owed thousands in unpaid fines, then quietly filed a lien, and boom, the land was gone. I didn't even get a chance to contest it. No court hearing, no warning letter. Just an HOA stepping in like they owned the place, and they sold it for peanuts. 25 grand for land worth 10 times that? Easy. My family's history gone in a blink. And the worst part? The buyer didn't even know it was shady. Or maybe they did. You're not going to believe how deep this goes, or what I found out next when I started digging into the records. So, I started digging. First stop was the county records office, and that's where things started getting weird. I pulled the property file for the ranch, and, sure enough, there was a lien recorded by something called the Clearbrook Ranch HOA. Now, I'd never even heard of Clearbrook, and neither had my grandfather. This ranch has been in our family for over 60 years. It's never been part of a subdivision. And we sure as heck never agreed to join any homeowners association. But the paperwork looked official, too official. It had dates, signatures, and even referenced a set of CC&Rs, those covenants, conditions, and restrictions that usually come with HOA properties. Only problem was, the CC&Rs were filed after my grandfather passed, and after the title transferred to me. That's when the timeline stopped making sense. How could they enforce rules on land that was never part of their jurisdiction? I tracked down some old neighbors who lived near the ranch. One of them, Mr. Langley, told me a developer had tried buying up parcels a few years ago and filed paperwork to create a rural HOA to boost property values. Most folks ignored it, but when they couldn't get enough signatures, they pulled out. Or so everyone thought. Apparently, a few of those documents still got recorded, and that's what this so-called Clearbrook Ranch HOA is leaning on. They're using half-baked filings to claim authority over land that doesn't legally belong to them. The deeper I looked, the more questions popped up. The signatures on some of the forms didn't match. A notary stamp looked off. And then came the biggest red flag. The contact info for the HOA's treasurer led to a UPS store mailbox. None of this was adding up, and the people behind it, they were making sure no one noticed. Until now, because what I found next turned everything upside down. After I found that the HOA's treasurer was using a UPS mailbox, I knew something shady was going on. I started calling every number listed on those lien documents. Most went straight to voicemail. One number finally rang through, but the guy who answered didn't sound like someone working for a legal association. He was short with me, said I missed my window to appeal, and then hung up. No name, no offer to talk it out. When I realized this wasn't just some clerical mistake, felt like a setup. Meanwhile, I talked to a local real estate lawyer who reviewed the deed in Lien. He raised his eyebrows and said, "This looks like manufactured authority. If they never had jurisdiction, this lien shouldn't have held up." But once they get it through a quick county auction, it becomes harder to undo. He also mentioned this tactic wasn't unheard of. Some small groups act like real HOAs and file liens, hoping property owners don't notice or fight back. While I was digging into legal options, I started hearing from other landowners near the area. One woman, a single mom trying to keep her dad's trailer lot, had her place threatened by the same HOA. Another guy down the road told me he got a weed violation fine, even though he'd lived off-grid and never agreed to any HOA involvement either. It was becoming clear this wasn't just about my ranch. These people were targeting folks who inherited rural land, folks who might not live there full-time, hoping they'd be too slow to respond. The deeper I went, the more disturbing it became. Some of the names listed as board members of the HOA didn't check out. One was supposedly deceased for over 5 years. Another didn't exist in any state registry I searched. It was like chasing ghosts. But someone had to be cashing those checks. Someone was making real money off of these fake fines. Now the trail was about to lead me right into something I never expected. I kept following the paper trail, piecing together whatever I could. One name kept popping up: Daniel R. Keller. Supposedly the president of the Clearbrook Ranch HOA. He'd signed off on the lien documents, approved the fines, and submitted the property sale paperwork. But every time I searched him online, nothing solid came up. No LinkedIn, no social presence, no real estate license, nothing. Just a few outdated business listings tied to shell companies, most of them dissolved. One led to an empty office space on the edge of town. The deeper I went, the more it felt like I was chasing shadows. At this point, I knew I had to get boots on the ground. I drove out to the ranch. Even though it had supposedly been sold, the gate was still chained with the same lock I'd left there. No sign of new owners, no activity. But taped to the gate was a notice: private property, no trespassing, under HOA review. That's when it hit me. Maybe no one had taken possession yet. Maybe I still had a shot. I drove around to nearby properties, asking neighbors if anyone had come by. Most hadn't seen anything, but one older rancher said he saw a man in a dark SUV taking photos a week ago, parked near the edge of the property line. Said he looked like he was scouting something. No badge, no real estate signs, just a clipboard and a camera. Back in town, I decided to check the county auction office. That's when I found something even more chilling. The same buyer had purchased 3 other properties from HOA foreclosure auctions in the last year, all under different HOA names, but the treasurer and president names were always the same: Keller and someone named L. Hayworth. I was looking at a pattern, possibly even a scam ring pretending to be HOAs, filing fake violations and stealing land out from under people. But who were they really? And why was no one stopping them? I was about to find out because someone started leaving messages on my truck windshield. And they weren't friendly. At first, I thought the note on my windshield was a prank. It was written in sharp black marker on a torn envelope: "Stop asking questions. You lost the ranch. Move on." No name, no contact. Just taped right under my wiper blade while I was parked outside the clerk's office. I looked around, but no one was near. That's when it sank in: whoever was behind this knew exactly where I was and what I was doing. This wasn't random. I was being watched. I took the note home and started documenting everything: dates, calls, photos, even screenshots of all the names and auctions. But later that night, the second twist hit, and it came from my own family. I was flipping through an old box of my grandfather's documents, just looking for anything that might help, when I found a folder labeled Ranch Association to 1998. Inside were letters, decades old, warning about a group trying to enforce guidelines on rural landowners. It was the same name: Keller and Hayworth, except back then they were using a different HOA name. My grandfather had written a statement refusing to join saying they had no right to claim his land. I couldn't believe it. This wasn't new. These people had been trying to pull something like this since the late 90s. Only now, they'd gotten better at hiding it. More sophisticated, more legal looking, and worse, they'd gotten away with it. Just when I thought it couldn't get deeper, I got a call from the guy who bought my ranch at auction. I hadn't spoken to him yet, but his name had been listed on the deed transfer. He sounded nervous, said he wanted to meet, said there was something I needed to know. His voice was shaky, like he'd gotten into something he regretted. When I asked what it was about, he just said, "It's not just your ranch. You're not the only one they targeted. And I think I made a mistake." I agreed to meet him the next morning. But when I got there, he didn't show. Instead, I found another note on my windshield. This time, it said, "You were warned." That second note hit different. My gut told me I was getting close to something they didn't want uncovered. So instead of backing off, I pushed harder. I went straight to the local news station with everything I had: documents, photos, interviews from neighbors, even my grandfather's old letters. At first, the producer didn't seem too interested, until I showed her the web of property sales tied to Keller and Hayworth, and the identical HOA violations filed across multiple counties. That's when her eyes lit up. She said, "This isn't just a bad foreclosure. This could be fraud on a much bigger scale." The station started digging with their own legal team, and everything snowballed from there. Within days, the story aired. They called it the Phantom HOA scam. And suddenly, phones were ringing off the hook. More victims came forward, people from other states, even who had lost land the same way. Always through a fake-sounding HOA with fine print no one remembered signing. Turns out Keller wasn't even using his real name, his real identity: Dennis. Clay, a former real estate agent disbarred for shady land deals in Nevada over a decade ago. And Hayworth. It's not a person at all, just a fake name used on filings, tied to a dead P.O. box. But the real twist came when investigators discovered one of the counties involved had an inside clerksome when helping rush these fake liens through without proper checks. That's how they kept slipping under the radar. And the buyer of my ranch, he wasn't just an innocent bystander. He was in on it too, as a clean buyer to flip properties fast and avoid suspicion. Only he got scared when the story broke and decided to come clean in exchange for immunity. The sheriff's office, with help from the state attorney, seized documents, froze accounts, and launched a full criminal investigation. I finally got legal grounds to reclaim the ranch. But it took everything: months of stress, legal fees, and sleepless nights. And just when I thought it was over, I received one last letter in the mail. No return address, just 5 words written in shaky pen. "This isn't really over yet.